And let me get my stuff together here. We are live. We are live. This has been a kind of a crazy afternoon here. I was just about to actually get out and get some other work done around the house. I'm like, you know what? I better hang out here for just a minute or two. There could be some things going on here. So welcome in. I'm Scott Kennedy. You know me on Scout Kennedy, as Scout Kennedy on Twitter. And let me bring in some of my Facebook groups here as well and get those spinning. 2, 3. So welcome in. It says I can't get me on Facebook. Probably just broke Facebook. So welcome in to Atlanta Falcons fans, football fans, Indianapolis Colts fans of all shapes and sizes. Luke Wright happens to be Broncos fans who just loves football. So everybody here is welcome. I want to talk about the breaking news of Matt Ryan to the Colts. It's hard to say it's expected or unexpected when you follow the Atlanta Falcons, because things that you start to expect, if it's a good thing, they usually kind of break down, whether it's games or player personnel, Deshaun Watson at the very end. If it's a bad thing, you can kind of expect it. But with Matt Ryan, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both coming in. You're not sure, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is the compensation of a third-round pick plus, being able to move on from the contract, is that enough? Those are all the things I want to get into in this gut reaction. And I want to say hi to some folks that are coming in real quick. Say hello to Luke. Hello to Mark coming in with a super. Mark, you're just awesome. Thank you so much. Falling Sloth, he says, caught me with the wild news right as I get free from work. Didn't need another NFC to AFC move. And that's the truth. Falling Sloth is a Denver Broncos fans, and the AFC is turning into the league. When I was 80s and 90s, I think the NFC won about 14 or 15 straight Super Bowls, and it's starting to stack up in the AFC right now. We'll get into that a little bit. And Moose Timms or Thames or Timms, depending on where you are, says this is a sad day, but I think a day needed. I don't know what's next or if this is good or bad. And Moose, we're going to get into that on a lot of things. And y'all know low. A third-round pick is not a second. A third-round pick to not a second and a third. I'm not sure what that means, if you're saying if it was supposed to be a second or if it is a second and a third. The initial news I saw was it was just a third. And when I posed this question to Falcons fans at the beginning of the month, would the Colts, because they didn't have a first-round pick, I said, would it get it done for a second-rounder to get Matt Ryan? And I was actually surprised. I was fairly surprised at the response. The response was basically, hell no, that's not enough. It's Matt Ryan. If these guys are going for this much, Matt Ryan should be going for at least a first, maybe a first and some change. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if really that's the right answer, because of his age, his contract situation, how desperate are the Falcons to get out from under his contract. What this does in the short term for the Falcons is it cripples them for 2022. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they were going to be bad. Someone just asked me on Twitter, what are the Falcons going to do at quarterback this year? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what the Falcons were going to do at quarterback in 2022, because the team was going to be bad. If you follow some of these advanced metrics and charts and stuff on who should have done this and who should have done that probability, the Falcons were statistically the worst 7-win team of all time. They went backwards in virtually every category last year from 2020 to 2021, except I think the coaching was better with the defensive coordinator, and I thought Arthur Smith did a good job. They had a Pro Bowl kicker. They hit the jackpot in Cordero Patterson. Kyle Pitts did really well, and you had a good veteran quarterback. Helped you go 7-2 in one-score games. But the team itself was bad. The roster was bad. And honestly, it's getting worse. It was getting worse instead of getting better going into 2022. So who was going to be the quarterback? Was it going to be Matt Ryan, or it didn't matter? You get Deshaun Watson in here. We actually joked on a pod last week. So like, if Deshaun Watson comes in, suspend him for 2022 if you're a Falcons fan. It doesn't matter. I don't want him getting killed behind this offensive line and going 2-15. I don't want Matt Ryan playing behind this offensive line and getting killed in 2022. What this does is it takes that contract, you eat the dead cap money, you just eat it. It's going to be a quarter, more than a quarter, because you're talking Julio Jones too, because you spread Julio Jones's number across 2 seasons instead of just taking your medicine because you couldn't afford to and doing it all in one. So you've got $65 million of your 218 going to 2 guys of your salary cap, of your available salary cap room, going to 2 guys that aren't going to be there. I don't blame Terry Fontenot for this. You know why I say Dimitroff? Because that's who I've got in my mind. I blame Thomas Dimitroff for the state of being that the Atlanta Falcons are in and the cap hell that they are in. This resets it. You just rebooted. You rebooted this franchise. That's what this does. Did you get a 3rd rounder back for it? Does that help? Yeah, that helps. But more importantly, you're going to go into, and how I answered that question is who's going to be the Falcons quarterback? Unless they reach on a guy at 8, which I don't necessarily advocate for, because I think they can get a guy that similar to the Kyle Pitts. If you didn't like Justin Fields, fine. You got Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is a hit. He's going to be a star in the NFL for a long time. Go after best available player again in this spot, because it's going to be at a premium position, and it's not going to be a quarterback at 8. You are going to stink in 2022. The Falcons are going to be a hot mess in 2022. I don't care who the quarterback was that was coming in, whether it was Matt Ryan, whether it was Deshaun Watson, or they bring in Joe Montana reincarnate. It didn't matter. This 2022 roster is bad. So by not getting Deshaun Watson, the Falcons still have their 2023 first-round pick. I'd be willing to bet right now that that's a top 3 pick, that's a top 3 pick next year. If you're in the top 3, the top 1 or 2, you've got Bryce Young, you've got CJ Stroud in 2023. Go best available player at 8. Embrace the tank. I know we don't tank on purpose. That's wrong. But this league rewards you for failing. So fail big. Fail with flair. Move Matt Ryan to a place where he can be successful and go chase a ring. The AFC West is loaded, I know. But where he can at least go and be competitive again and be in the playoff contenders again and play for a contender. The Falcons aren't going to be it, and he's 37 years old. He cannot last a rebuild. So what does this do? This clears his cap space for 2023. I didn't think they had the stomach for it. I really didn't. I said it before. I did not think they had the stomach to take a $50 million dead cap hit in 2022. I didn't think they'd do it. But instead of just bleeding, it's like, okay, maybe this team is a little better. And they win 6 games, but they're still bad. Just rip it off. Do it. It's what's best for the franchise. It's what's best for Matt Ryan. You get a 3rd rounder back. Maybe that's good. But more importantly, you get $65 million back between Julio Jones and Matt Ryan next year. This is a group of men that have been working in the Atlanta Falcons front office the last 2 off seasons, getting rid of guys just to get above the cap so they can sign veteran minimums. They're going to have about $150 million to spend in 2023. Now, you don't build a team in free agency in 1 year. You don't do it. I get that. But you can go out and get some young free agents. You can basically buy draft picks. There's a lot of Denver Broncos fans in here. How did they end up with a 2nd and 3rd for Von Miller instead of just a 3rd? Because they paid his salary. They basically spent $8 million to buy a 2nd-round pick. Those are the kind of things you can do. And this isn't the Smith regime anymore. By that, I mean the Rankin Smiths. For you old-time Falcons fans that grew up in the 80s and 90s with the Smith family, this is Arthur Blank. If Arthur Blank has $150 million to spend, he'll spend it. He will give it. He will unleash the purse strings. He will come up with signing bonuses. And this will be a team that is going to hit rock bottom in 2022. Going to. And then they can move back up. This will accelerate the rebuild instead of the slow slide into the abyss and the painful just decaying of this roster. Boom. Done. This is it. I feel bad for some of the guys that are on it, but Kyle Pitts is young. He's 21. He's got 10 years ahead of him. AJ Terrell, he's young. Okay, next question. What do you do with Grady Jarrett now? You think Grady Jarrett wants to sign an extension? He's got a $22 million cap hit. Do you move Grady Jarrett? What's to stop you from doing it? Maybe you get a first or second round pick from Grady Jarrett and you've got $175 million next year. So, yes, Freddie Freeman, Matt Ryan. Wow. It's been quite a week we're having here in Atlanta. Freddie Freeman going back out to LA, Matt Ryan being moved on. Those are guys that have been here for, those are only players my kids have ever known at their positions with the Atlanta Braves and Atlanta Falcons. So I've been on a rant here for about 10 straight minutes. So let me hit some of your questions in here that is coming through. And if you haven't already, if you saw me on Twitter, retweet that. I'd love to invite some Colts fans in here, some Falcons fans in here, et cetera, et cetera. Shane Daniel says, hey, Scott, is Atlanta going to go for Mayfield? Atlanta is flat broke right now. Flat broke because, as we were talking about, $65 million is in dead cap money. So would they go after Baker Mayfield? Only if they can convince the Browns to pay a salary. Because I think it's going to be, if they can convince somebody to pay a salary, that's the only way. Otherwise, you're going for a cheap vet minimum for a year, or you're going with a rookie. And man, I don't want to use a number 8 pick and get a rookie killed. So you're going to need a vet minimum anyway. And Riley coming in says, we should have gotten at least a second for him. And Riley, if they hadn't botched the Deshaun Watson stuff last year, then maybe they could have. Then it may have last week. It still probably would have been a third because you have to move him now. But at the beginning of the day, I saw Ian Rappaport say Matt Ryan will either be traded or they'll probably offer him, that restructured deal with a sweetener in it. That sweetener was to say, our bad. Our bad. We went after a guy with the background of Deshaun Watson instead of, which is understandable. But, Matt Ryan has been the ultimate professional in Atlanta for his time here. And for Colts fans, if you're coming in, say hello in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Some of the questions about Carson Wentz was his leadership, his attitude, his locker room presence. That's done. That has been fixed. You do not have to worry one bit about the professionalism of Mr. Matt Ryan. He is loved by, pretty much universally loved. I've never heard a former teammate say anything bad about him. Coach anywhere. They all speak that this is a pro's pro. One of those things a little bit here. And Mark Schrader, again, appreciate the super chat you came in with earlier. Said it's probably better that they traded him, might raise a draft pick for next year. Exactly. Instead of maybe picking 8 or 9 next year and getting a good player, now next year, 2023, when there is legitimate, there's no questions. Yeah, I like Malik Willis, but yeah, I like Kenny Pickett, but maybe we should take Desmond Ridder in the second, but those type of things. It's, I want CJ Stroud. I want Bryce Young. And you know what? If for some reason you decide I want Will Anderson, the destroyer from Alabama, I think you got to go quarterback at this point. If you're third, you find out who's first or second, and you make them an offer they can't refuse. And Kevin says that they plan on moving Ryan before the Watson fiasco. Evidently, the talks had been talks, and I posted this video, and a couple of people said this is old. I'm like, I said it was old in the description on my YouTube channel. In January, after one of the last games, Chris Mortensen, who lives in Atlanta, ESPN's Chris Mortensen, tweeted out that expect Matt Ryan to stay because Arthur Smith went to Arthur Blank, the owner, and advocated for him, and it was one of the reasons he wanted to be in Atlanta. And Arthur Smith was pissed. He's like, 1, that's not how things work here. I don't go behind my general manager's back. And 2, we're not closing the door on anything. So the idea of trading Matt Ryan has been around for a long time, but I didn't think they had the stomach to do it. I didn't think they would say, you know what, we're going to eat $50 million in dead cap space and rock bottom in 2022. That's what it took. That's what it's going to take. I didn't want to see this team just continually slide down. Man, fall off the cliff. Get it done. You're going to end up there anyway. Don't get your quarterback killed. And in the meantime, the Falcons fans will get behind the fact that, hey, we move this guy on. We're going to have a ton of money, and we're going to have high draft picks. We've still got all our picks because we didn't get Watson. We're going to have high draft picks. This is where it's going to move forward. So yes, were they planning on moving before the Watson fiasco? I think they were not maybe planning, but in discussions. And then after the Watson fiasco, it was like, okay, now we gotta. And you don't have to. I mean, you own the contract. You can do whatever you want to, but it made it tough for sure. Again, one of the best professionals that the city's ever known, and Matt Ryan, and he got kind of treated kind of poorly. Not directly. He's made $200 million. I get it, but that was kind of a mess last week for sure. Nathan saying busy offseason. Scott, it's been a crazy week. I mean, 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago it was Aaron Rodgers saying, I'm going back to Green Bay, and then all hell broke loose. A couple hours later, Russell Wilson says, I'm going to Denver. It has been crazy. Luke Wright saying, I heard a rumor that Marcus Mariota is who you're going to get. Possible. Very possible. Again, you can look for a guy like this with Luke MC coming out. Hear me out. Sign Teddy Bridgewater or Cam Newton and then draft Malik Willis to sit behind him for a year. Cam's from Atlanta. He's from Westlake High School, just down in Atlanta. Teddy Bridgewater has been signed by the Miami Dolphins as a backup to Tua on a fairly affordable contract. I think he's about $5.5 million. That's about what it's going to take. I would fear for Teddy Bridgewater's life playing for the Atlanta Falcons. He's about one more hit away from not being able to write his name and speak clearly after having his brain scrambled a couple times in Denver, having his leg almost torn off in Minnesota. I love Teddy as a person. I don't want Teddy playing for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't want him behind that offensive line unless they figure out how to, and I don't know how they're going to now, unless they figure out how to fix, Kayla McGarry and Jalen Mayfield. I don't want Teddy Bridgewater on this team. I like Teddy Bridgewater too much. For the same reason I said I'd like to see Matt Ryan move on. I would like to see him move on because he's 37 and he won't last long enough. If they keep his contract, they extend him. Okay, let's say he's here 4 more years. It's at least year 4 before they're ready to compete again. This makes it so it's 2 years away. People talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals did this, and this. Look how fast they turned around. They didn't turn it around fast. The building blocks were in place for several years. Drop $300 million in free agency. Draft your franchise quarterback. Get a superstar wide receiver next year. That's about 3 years worth of moves before it all started to culminate. And they're just starting to go in the right direction. Now, they were 10-7. It was a fight to get into the playoffs, and then they got hot, but they were still 10-7. So they went bad to good to wow in the Super Bowl. But they're not one of those wow teams yet. They're not a team that you could just pencil in and say, okay, this is the Chiefs or the Bills where it's been sustained. Now I think you can't. Now we can expect the Bengals to make the playoffs in about year 4 of that rebuilding process. Falcons hadn't even started that rebuilding process yet. That rebuilding process starts now, hitting bottom, having a ton of money in 2023. Coming in here a little bit. Doyle, welcome, Doyle. It feels like a new name to the show and to the channel. It says, I think we should move on from Ryan. I thought so too. For his sake, for the Falcons' sake, because of that contract. It was nothing against the play. He gets a lot of heat for the losses. Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. Matt Ryan is a very good quarterback. If I'm going down the list of things that are worse than Matt Ryan on the Atlanta Falcons, I can go 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. I can go running back. I can go pretty much every position at wide receiver for 3 receivers. Tight end is better. One of the corner spots is better. Grady Jarrett is good. That's it. Secondary, bad. Linebacking core, you just lost the NFL's leading tackler, and your pass rush was a freaking joke. 18 sacks. The next worst was 29. You could add a double-digit pass rusher and still finish last in sacks, and you're talking to me about Matt Ryan? Come on, man. Now, his contract, I'll listen to that. That I'll listen to. But this team on the field had way more problems before it was the quarterback's problem. Wyatt coming in, and he asked you to think the Falcons will target Baker at quarterback. I think if Baker had his choice to do something like that, he'd probably want to move to someplace that had a better chance to win because he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And that is if I've got 1 year left on my deal and I've got a contract year to prove that I can be really good, I'm not coming to the Falcons. I'm not coming to the Falcons. I don't know. Someone can look it up and put it in the chat, but I would rather take less money to go play someplace that's closer to winning. Saints. I'd rather go play in New Orleans as Baker Mayfield than come to Atlanta with a 1 year deal, because 2022 is a losing proposition for a quarterback. And Kevin, I think he kind of agrees with me here, saying, move Grady Jarrett now. Yeah, I love Grady. Grady, this is going to be a bad team. He struggled last year as being the only guy on that defensive line in that front five between the three defensive linemen and the two edges. He struggled last year because he had zero help across that front five. Doyle says, it makes me wonder what the Bulldogs are going to do now. The way Georgia sports are moving. You know what they're going to do? They're going to celebrate winning a national championship. That's how crazy things have been. Braves win a World Series. Georgia Bulldogs win a national championship. Freddie Freeman to LA. Matt Ryan to the Colts. What? This has been a hell of a year. This is a hell of a year we're having. How long has that been? Since November? All that since November? Braves, Bulldogs, Freddie, Matt Ryan. Yeah, that's been in the last 4-5 months. It's been crazy for sure. I think Arnold says good pickup Mayfield. And Taylor Vaughn Thaxton saying, what escalated this so quickly? Appreciate the question, Taylor. One of the things that got it done today was Matt Ryan's due a $7.5 million roster bonus at 4:00 today. He pushed that back. To today because it was supposed to be on Friday. And there was an article that I linked on one of the Falcons fans pages, said all signs are pointing. Actually, I linked it on the Facebook page, said all signs are pointing to a Matt Ryan exit. And one of the guys that there's like, this is fake news. When are you people gonna learn? I'm like, you know what, dude, follow me for a little while and you'll realize that you guys are always posting this fantasy stuff. I'm like, one, you have no idea what I've posted and what I haven't posted. And second, all signs are pointing to a Matt Ryan exit, you moron. See, that's what I love about something like this is I can say that, but if I write it down, I'm the bad guy. If I call the guy a moron like that, but that guy's a moron. That's like, why are you even here? Why are you even in a discussion board if you don't want to have a discussion? So, yeah, Matt Ryan was traded. You're welcome. Told you last week. James saying, just like that, the Falcons became the Broncos pre-Wilson trade. No. Not even close, James. The Broncos had a roster full of players that were able to get someone like Russell Wilson because he wanted to come and win. This roster for the Atlanta Falcons is awful. It is awful. Not only is it awful, it's expensive. It's expensive and bad. What's worse than being bad is not having the money to be able to upgrade it. So the Seahawks were closer to that because we're talking the Seahawks. That's who became the Broncos. Okay, what are they going to do at quarterback? Are they going to run it back with Drew? Or are they going to look at this guy? Are they going to look at Tyrod Taylor or Marcus Mariota or draft this guy or this guy? That's who became. This is 1980s Atlanta Falcons bad. 2-15 type of bad. But as US Dave says, financial freedom soon, and that's it. That's the big one. Hit bottom. Just do it. Hit bottom so you can start coming back. Stop the slide and just jump off the freaking cliff. Get it done. Let me see. Go through here. Daniel coming in. Appreciate you, Daniel. Says makes perfect sense. We'll miss him, but nothing lasts forever. The last 4 and 5 years are a great example. The last 4 and 5 years are the idea from a general manager who thinks that we have a window and we're going to mortgage the future for a championship now. He thought he was the LA Rams. The problem was they didn't really add anybody. They just kept overpaying the people that they had. Julio Jones, Grady Jarrett, Deion Jones, Matt Ryan. Awful contracts. And in that case, I wonder, who are you negotiating against? Don't negotiate against yourself. If someone, is overpriced like that, or, you think you're not getting value, let them test the market. Let them. So be it. I've said before, as a Matt Ryan fan, people say as a third rounder, not enough. I would trade Matt Ryan for a bag of chips if it meant getting $50 million off the cap. I like Matt Ryan. I will advocate him, and I will tell you why he can be a championship winning quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. But Matt Ryan was not going to do this Falcons team any good in 2022 unless they could get his contract off the books in 2023. The roster's too bad. He's too old to survive a rebuild. That's why it's like, well, all you folks thinking that Deshaun Watson coming in, and let's just talk football here. Deshaun Watson coming in is going to fix all these problems. No, it's not. The 2022 is going to be, I said, suspend him for the year. Keep him healthy. He's 26, though. This is the next 10 to 12 years for a guy like him. He can survive a rebuild. He could survive getting past 2022 and having the money to then go out and hit free agency while you've got a good quarterback in place for the next decade. Matt Ryan's shelf life wasn't long enough for something like that. Mellow Devil coming in and saying the AFC playoffs are going to be crazy. Good Lord. I kind of joke about, the expanded playoffs drive me crazy because, I love watching football. I love watching meaningful football games. And the expanded playoffs just mean that the regular seasons just aren't as meaningful. When everybody gets in, you're just talking about the 500 teams that are, fighting their way. It's like, oh, yeah, they're 8-8 and they're going for a playoff and they might squeak in at 9-8. I'm like, yeah, but they played bad football all year. The AFC is not going to be like that. There's going to be some really good teams that don't make the playoffs. Let's just, off the top of my head, AFC West, there's 4: Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, and Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers. Bills. The Bills are loaded. The Buffalo Bills are absolutely loaded. There's 5. Colts, 6. Titans went 13 and what did they go? 13-5, or was it 12 and I don't know. Titans won a bunch of games last year. There's 6, 7. It's going to be, and it's maybe somebody that you don't expect to. I don't think I even mentioned the Bengals. What about the Ravens and Steelers? They're always tough. What about the Browns? What are the Browns going to do? It's going to be crazy for sure. Let me see here. And Iggy Flint coming in saying, wow, dumb. Let's pay him $30 million to play somewhere else over the next 2 seasons. Add that to Julio's 15.5 this year. How paying players to play up for other teams makes us better. And we had this discussion on in the comment section of the YouTube channel. Let's see if I can be a little more clear instead of just thumbing my phone when I was answering. We'll pay him $30 million to play somewhere else. Well, technically, here's the thing, Iggy, is you've already paid him. That's why you're not allowed to get that money back. So what this does, and you're not going to extend it. To me, that was a mistake with Julio. With Julio, at Julio's production level, you're better off with a second round pick than you were with Julio. I believe that. If you traded Julio Jones for a second round pick right now, the Titans just waived him. They didn't think he was worth a second round pick. They just waived him. And he wasn't making a ton of money. He was making a ton of money with Atlanta. So I think for the compensation, you were better off with a second round pick. And if they could afford to, they couldn't because of the awful cap management from Thomas Dimitroff. They couldn't afford to eat that last year. If they did, and they took the $30 million hit last year, they'd have 15.5 back this year. So next year, again, this 2022 team is going to stink. I would rather have $65 million in available cap space in 2023 than Matt Ryan and Julio Jones on this roster. At their age, at their production levels, I would rather have that money available in 2023 and a second round pick for Julio and a third round pick for Matt Ryan. I'd rather have a second round pick, a third round pick, and $65 million in 2023 of available spending money than I would rather have than Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. And I don't think you'd find a lot of football people that would disagree with me on that, because Julio looks done. God bless him. I hope he's able to come back. And Matt Ryan is 37 years old and couldn't do anything with this roster. Instead, if I had $50 million of available cap money, I could plug in 10 $5 million free agents. That's better than Matt Ryan. And Wyatt coming in saying, was afraid you'd win too many games with Ryan to ruin your chances for a top pick next year. Exactly. Maybe they go 7-2 in one. I always want to say one run games, one score games, and you're picking 7 or 8 again, and you miss your chance at your franchise quarterback in Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, and you're still bad. You're still 7-10. You're still playing bad football. This is just, again, rip the Band-Aid off. Rip the Band-Aid off for sure. Paul coming in and saying, are Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo a possibility? Paul, it would take some serious financial backbending to pull this off. And how serious do I mean? Carolina Panthers, Denver Broncos serious. The Carolina Panthers signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 3-year, $66 million contract. I think they ate about $18 million of that and moved him to Denver last year. So Denver only paid about $4 to $6 million for Teddy Bridgewater last year. They got what they paid for, an average quarterback. And that's what it would take for Baker Mayfield to come to Atlanta, for him to be traded to Atlanta. Now, he wouldn't have his say in it. So if the Cleveland Browns say you've been traded, and we agree to pay, I forgot how much it is, most of his salary, Baker Mayfield doesn't have any say in it. Jimmy G might not. I doubt he's got a say in it too. They haven't been around long enough to have a no trade clause. But it's going to take someone paying for most of that money to make a trade like that, just because they're looking to dump a guy because they already have another guy. And I don't know that the Browns are in position to be able to do that because they just gave a $230 million guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson. I think they're trying to find some ways to shave salary cap, not pay Baker to come play for somebody else. Let me go through here a little bit. Todd Bishop coming in with a question. Said, so that's the Colts get Ryan. Should they take a chance on a deal with Julio Jones? Sure. Bring him in for a camp, a guaranteed deal. And if he can't stay healthy, you don't pay him. I wouldn't want to give up a roster spot. You wouldn't have to give up a draft pick, and it wouldn't cost you much. I don't think the market for Julio Jones is going to be very good. He hadn't been healthy in 2 years, and he was 2011, probably 20 years old. So he's probably 33 now, 33 years old now, and hasn't played in 2 years. He's not going to get an expensive deal. So the Colts, you get a deal for him that doesn't have a lot of guaranteed money in it and makes him really expendable. Maybe he shows flashes. Basically, think of what Von Miller did with the LA Rams. He wasn't great in the regular season, but you didn't get Von Miller for the regular season. So if you get Julio Jones, you basically spend the regular season saying, get healthy. I don't care about you. If you even feel a doubt about your hamstring, sit out. I don't care. I want you for the playoffs. I want you for the stretch run. So get healthy, get right, and you'll be fine. And that's where it'll pay off. But yeah, $2 or $3 million. See what he says. He's made a ton of money. It's not about money anymore for him. So, see what he wants to do. Wyatt coming in saying, was Pitts the right choice last year, knowing the shambles the Falcons were in, knowing they needed a rebuild? Wyatt, you've watched me enough to know I've got a saying. It's not necessarily who you miss, but it's who you take that can't play. So I'm happy with Kyle Pitts. However, I did not want that pick at all. Now, to be fair, when they were talking about drafting him, when they drafted him, the news hadn't come out that Julio wanted out. So we have these discussions and we have these hot takes. Well, we don't have all the information. I try and remind everybody of that. So I don't have all the information. The information I have was a receiver, a pass catching player, a tight end, wasn't going to help this team get better in 2021. But I don't know where Calvin Ridley's head's at, and they knew that Julio Jones wanted out. So, okay, you got a long-term replacement for him. That said, my picks in that spot were always trade down, Justin Fields. I wanted to do this last year. I wanted to get the quarterback last year in this quarterback class. I liked Justin Fields. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I'm not going to go back and change history. I like Justin Fields in that pick. So trade down, Justin Fields, Penny Sewell, because I liked a good left tackle. I like a premium position. I like that. Left tackle, best player. Sew up that position, put him at right tackle until you figure out what you want to do with Jake Matthews, because What would have helped this team last year even more was not the revolving door, and I don't mean by multiple players. I mean like, Olay of Caleb McGarry at right tackle, and trade down. Yeah, I said trade down twice because yes, Wyatt, this team needed multiple players, and if they had even gotten the offer that the Bears offered the Giants, I would have been tempted. And if I was sitting at 3 with the offer, that would have been my dream for the Falcons, is if they had gotten that offer that the 49ers offered them and come up with 2 more first round picks. My God, that would have been absolutely perfect. So was Pitts a right choice? Pitts was a good player and he's a good building block for the next decade. But that wasn't the pick that I particularly wanted him to make for sure. Let's see. Here we go. Jason L says Ryan has no chance on the Falcons. I'll be pulling for the Colts if he is signed. Yeah, he'll be going there, and I'll be rooting for Matt Ryan. If they're playing the Falcons or whoever I'm rooting for, it wouldn't change who I root for that day. But I'll still be root for individuals. That's when. Let me put it this way: when Freddie Freeman comes to Atlanta for the first time, and if I was there, I'd stand up and cheer. I'd cheer him in a Dodgers uniform. I'd hope he goes 3 for 3 with 3 solo home runs, and the Braves beat them 18-3. It's possible to be a fan of the player. We are fans of players, not just the uniforms. That's what the personalities and the connection, and that's why it hurts when these guys move on. And Jason agrees. Heck no on Julio unless it's for absolute peanuts. Yeah, exactly. Low risk, a non-guaranteed $5 million deal. If he can't stay on the field, waive him. You didn't pay him anything. Jeff says, y'all are getting Marcus Mariota. That wouldn't surprise me. Again, a mobile guy, and he's out there for 1 year. What can you do in 1 year? Unfortunately, I feel for anybody that's going to play for this. They're not going to have a good season at quarterback. Hopefully, there's enough smart people making talent evaluation to say, hey, this team was a disaster and he did the best he could, and we're not going to write him off completely. Sounds like Jamal. He's Jamal Strong is coming with a strong opinion. So what are the Colts doing? We don't need Matt Ryan's old ass. We should have gone with Baker Mayfield. Colts staff will never get back to the Super Bowl going with them washed up old players. Jamal, Matt Ryan is not washed up. And I think you had kind of a similar experience with what you had in Baker Mayfield with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, you look by the numbers, you don't give up on a guy like that with 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. You don't give up on him for what it costs you to get him unless there were serious problems in the locker room. Baker Mayfield probably didn't have as good a season. His best season might not be as good as Carson Wentz was last year. Probably pretty close. But there's questions there about the maturity, the focus, the leadership, and all that. And all that's done with Matt Ryan. It's just done. Matt Ryan is I hope this doesn't come off too strong for the Colts fans watching. I have referred to Matt Ryan as basically a Peyton Manning light. All of the stuff that we talk about Peyton Manning for being so good, you never hear arm strength, quickness, all of that stuff. It's always the cerebral, pre-snap, adjustments, accuracy. All of those things that we say that are good about Peyton Manning are the same adjectives and descriptions that we use about Matt Ryan. He just obviously hasn't had the same success. But to be fair, before Peyton moved on to Denver, the question around Peyton Manning was, he can't win the big one. He's only got one. Well, Matt should have one too. Matt should have one too. Threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against no interceptions. Matt Ryan is good enough to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And frankly, that's a low bar when you throw in the likes of, Trent Dilfer. So Matt Ryan is a good enough quarterback to win you a Super Bowl if the rest of the pieces are, if you've got a good enough team, for sure. 30 Bird 08 saying fire sale, time for the dark ages. Yeah, can you eat? The thing about Grady Jarrett is he's got a huge dead cap number 2. Moving him on doesn't save you any money. That's what's so frustrating about these awful contracts that Thomas Dimitroff negotiated. He played fast and loose with Arthur Blank's money, these big signing bonuses and kicking cans down the road. If you get rid of Grady Jarrett this year, you can't replace him. His dead cap number is the same size as his salary cap number, so you can't replace him. So what can you get for him? It has to be worth it then to pull that off, because he's only got 1 year left on his deal. But but yeah, that's it could be. If I'm Grady Jarrett, I'm probably asking out, and then I'd go public with it. So I might do something like that. We're at 40 minutes here, y'all, and I'm gonna try and rapid fire here through some of these comments because my throat's starting to hurt, and I got 2 more pods tonight. Paul Gonzalez, do you think the Falcons will target a QB in the draft? Paul, I hope not at 8. Not at 8. I don't mind them if they were able to trade back and get one 15 to 20. That'd be okay, and pick up some extra things. Let me scroll down here some a little bit. Marcus Mariota or Jimmy G. So let me go. I'm going to go down some. Hey, at least you have Chick-fil-A at the stadium. Thank you, Jeremy. At least one thing to look forward to, except that Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays. So that always becomes interesting. But they are there for Atlanta United games, which is nice. That is nice. Oh yeah, I think someone else, I think actually said that. Yeah, Dave. So I'm just catching up here. And Clayton here coming in and reminding folks, yeah, hit that like button, that share and subscribe button if you're watching for the first time. Go ahead and hit that. I appreciate it. Mario Lindsay, hello. Good to see you in here. He says, I agree with you. I'm not sure who he's agreeing with, but I'm glad you're here. Appreciate you coming in and joining. The Todd feels pretty strongly against the no Julio. No Julio, no, and hell no. And like I said, it would be an absolute no risk proposition for me. So Julio at 3 million, 4 million non-guaranteed. Yeah, bring him into camp. See what he's got for sure. Why not? You got nothing to lose. You don't like it? Waive him. I'm okay with that. Scott Iggy says Scott Julio averaged 9.8 per route ran last year compared to Michael Thomas, who averaged 2.89 yards per route when he broke the record the other year. The stat shows he's still got some game or gas. Man, the production's what matters. The route run and Michael Thomas was hurt last year. He was hurt too last year and went through it and then had a very public spat. So he does still have some gas, which is why I say, why not bring him in? Non-guaranteed contract, nothing to lose. Todd, are the Falcons thinking about going with Franks? Why not? Like I said, if you ask me who's going to be the quarterback, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the quarterback's going to be in 2022. And Felipe Franks is not an NFL quarterback. He's not a good enough passer. I saw somebody, and sometimes if I see too many comments, I'm like, it's too late. I can't have any influence on this conversation. When I see some of these, and I just kind of pass them. I'll have it now. I saw, he's 6'7", cannon for an arm, and all this stuff. No, he's not. He's not a very good passer. That's the problem. He's got a better chance at tight end as an H-back than he does as an NFL quarterback. There's a reason why he went undrafted, despite the fact that he was at Florida, at Arkansas, 5-star recruit, all of the hype. He went undrafted because he can't throw. He's not a thrower. And hopefully, for his sake, he ends up being all those things, and these definitives I just spat out get recorded and say, man, this guy was an idiot. Okay, that's fine. Good for him. But no, I would not be going for I would not be pinning anything on Felipe Franks. That doesn't mean he won't be the quarterback next year, because again, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. The team's going to stink. And you could go with Felipe Franks as a quarterback, you are guaranteed the number 1 pick. If he started 17 games, you'd be looking at 0-17. No doubt in my mind. And that's not because he's that bad. It's because the team is already that bad, and a good quarterback might get you 4 wins, and Felipe Franks isn't a good quarterback. So that was my point on that. Let me go down here some more. A new name in here. Says, make you fumble. The thing is, Matt Ryan was a great quarterback for the Falcons. However, Ryan was never Brady. Yeah, well, who was? And that ain't fair. That said, switch Matt Ryan and put Matt Ryan in New England and bring with Belichick and bring Tom Brady and put him down here. And I think the Super Bowl ring count is a little bit different. It's probably not 7-0. Might not be 7 for 1. There might not be 7 total in there, but I don't think it's 7-0. And Taylor coming in saying Kenny Pickett at 8 or Willis. Oh, if you had any thoughts that you might be able to win tomorrow, you might think Kenny Pickett. I think he's a little bit farther ahead than Malik Willis. But if I'm thinking that Malik Willis could be my guy, then for the future, then I'd go that way. I'd go with the guy with the higher upside. And Malik Willis is that guy. Physically, I think he's got an advantage over Kenny Pickett in just about everything. His accuracy isn't quite as good, which is important. That's still one of the most important things on there is your accuracy. I would, like I said, Taylor, I would embrace the tank. You're going after CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. However, don't be afraid to move on pretty early. If you get a Malik Willis, you might, and you're sitting there at 3 and you want to be at 1 or 2, maybe you can package Malik Willis and turn him into a first rounder next year if you were trying to move him on. Let's just think if Tom Brady went to the San Francisco 49ers or someone younger. Aaron Rodgers, he's not even that much younger. Deshaun Watson went to the San Francisco 49ers. You could still move Trey Lance for a premium. You could still get first rounders back for him. So as far as depreciating assets go, if you take a quarterback at 8, you can't be afraid to take another one next year. So I'd be okay with that. But if it prohibits them from doing the right thing and getting the better quarterback the next year, I'd be pretty pissed. Eric McDowell saying Matt Ryan deserves a great team around him and he'll win a Super Bowl this year. It's going to be tough. The AFC is going to be pretty nasty just coming out of there. But he'll have a lot more fun playing. I promise you that. The receivers will be better. Offensive line will be better. Everything will be better than what he would have had last year. And Samuel Davis, very active on YouTube, saying, I'm ecstatic for Matt Ryan. He should fit in well with the Indianapolis Colts. I wanted this for Matt Ryan too. Good comment coming in Facebook from Michael McGill. I'd love to have Travon Walker at 8 and get Sam Howell-Ritter in the 2nd or 3rd round. Michael, that's kind of how I mock them sometimes too. I think Ritter is improving enough up the board. He might be tough to get in the 2nd round, but on one of those, it might be Pro Football Network or something. He's always there in the 3rd. I grab him every time in the 3rd. So just a couple more minutes here, and then I'm going to get out of here, y'all. I appreciate you joining me. Dave coming in just a little bit. Say it's hard to constantly blame Thomas Dimitroff for what happened. It is hard to constantly blame. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's real easy to blame Thomas Dimitroff for what happened. The Falcons were a legit playoff Super Bowl team when these restructures and extensions took place. The best team the Falcons had, here we go. Now we're going to go back to ancient history, was 13-3. Was the 2010 team that was the number one contender, the number one playoff seed. They got blown out by the Green Bay Packers. Packers hung 50 on them. I think it was 48-24, something like that. Didn't force Aaron Rodgers to punt the ball. 13-3. Tony Gonzalez, Roddy White. I forgot who else. There was another pretty big name wide receiver in there. Michael Turner, I think, was a running back. They had offensive weapons. So you go give up 48 points, and what do? He traded 5 premium picks for a wide receiver. It turned out to be Julio Jones, which was a good wide receiver. But 13-3 was the high watermark for that team. That was 10 years ago. It took them 5 years to recover from that trade because they went like this after that trade. They got back to the NFC Championship game, but Julio Jones has 187 yards and 2 touchdowns against the 49ers, and they lose because they can't stop anybody and they can't kill the clock. They can't run it when it matters, and they can't stop anybody when it matters. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? So those restructures take place, and then 2016, 5 years later, they get there. And again, what did you do with those restructures except trying to keep the band together that didn't get it done the first time? And then as far as after that, I blame whoever it is that hired or allowed to be hired Steve Sarkisian to take over for the 2016 offense. So if that was Dan Quinn, I blame him for that because he had never been an offensive coordinator in the NFL, and you hand him a drunken failure, college football failure. You hand him the keys to the nation's number one offense. I mean, the NFL's number one offense. And then you didn't fire him. Then you kept him around for a year. I'm like, okay, they're done. So it's not hard to blame Thomas Dimitroff for the state of the Falcons now. I'd be more forgiving if they had been able to win a Super Bowl, but they didn't. They mortgaged the future and they failed. And we've been paying for it for 5 years here in Atlanta. All right. Okay, Scott, what's the Colts record going to be? let's see. What was it last year? Did they finish 10-7 or did they finish 9-8? Um, I don't know the Colts that well, and you have to look at the improvements across the AFC, but I think they can be an 11-win team. Should move up there. Go 11-6 and be able to make some noise in the playoffs. They still have a ton of money. They'll still have a bunch of money to go after. I mean, they started this thing with 70 million. They got a couple guys, and I think it knocked them down to about 56, and then maybe at 30. And even if you add 25, you're still looking at 15 to 20 available to go out and get a couple weapons to make some improvements. So while Chris Ballard has been super wishy-washy on the quarterback position and maybe made some mistakes in there for the Colts, the team is set up in a really good area. So Ryan went to the Super Bowl the last time he had a running tack and an edge rusher, and somebody who could sack the quarterback. It's amazing how that happens. I can run the ball and sack the quarterback, and we were pretty good. Wow. Crazy, I know. This isn't a hard game, folks. I am going to get out of here. I've been here about 50 minutes. I appreciate y'all coming in to join me today. And if you have any questions, hit the comments after the fact. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and share button. And if you have any questions after the fact saying, Scott, you're an idiot, and this is why, at least tell me why I'm an idiot so I can, either correct myself or just say, no, I'm an idiot because I disagree with you. I'd appreciate it. But hit the comments on the YouTube. YouTube.com/C/Scott Kennedy is where I am the most for the comments. I will see some of y'all tonight. Zach and I will be on the Huddle Up Pod on the Mile High Huddle YouTube channel and Facebook pages. So that's where we'll be tonight. And I'm going to take some cough drops because it's going to be a long, fun day. But like I always say, beats working for a living. Get to talk sports. Not too bad. So appreciate y'all for joining me. And we'll see you again next time.